Hi all, it's Ben here from East West. This is part 2 of our Python for Finance for Python Beginners course. Now, this is actually a remake of the original video because I realised I've made a pretty grievous error here which might have led you to not be able to even complete this simple program. So let me re-step through what I would like to show you here today. So today we're just going to have a look at basically how we download some data from the internet. So we start here with our blank Jupyter notebook. Now the first thing I like to do here is to come up here, and if you just click there, we can just give the program a title. So I'm going to call this one downloading data, and you can call it whatever you like. Just make sure it's got a name that you'll be able to pick out easily in a long list of codes. So if we just hit rename, okay, we can see up here now we've got downloading data, so that's great. So the next step I'd like to take is I like to give my codes a heading. So I'm going to type in downloading data into the first cell like that. Now two things we can do here. We can either come up here to code and go heading, but you can see here Jupyter no longer uses special headings, so you can actually just use hashtags to denote a heading. So if you just do this, the only thing we've got to do now is just to make sure that the cell is markdown. So we're basically using just code and markdown. So if we just use markdown here, you can see that just changes the size. So that's fine. We can just do that. Now once we've got this looking the way we want it, right size, you just come up here and hit run. And that will run that cell. It knows that it's not code, it's just a heading. And that'll just insert that into the cell for us there. Now the next thing I like to do is put a little quick description. So let's put this program downloads data from Yahoo, like that. Okay, and once again just make sure that is a markdown, and we'll just hit run. Now what I also like to do is when I'm going through other videos on YouTube or wherever, if I'm looking at something on the internet that I think is relevant to this program and that it's a reference that I might want to come back to, I'll often just insert the link. So I'm just going to type in here www.youtube.com and make that also a markdown. And if you just run that cell, so obviously after this you have whatever comes up for the video. If you just want to reference this video, then just copy and paste the address from YouTube. If you just run that, then you can come up here. It's a clickable link, so if you're ever going back through your codes and you want to just double check something, you can always just quickly bring up the video or the page that relates to this program and double check your work. Okay, now this is the step that I missed in the original video, and it's really important. So when we downloaded Anaconda, we did download a whole bunch of libraries, a lot of stuff that's sort of preloaded, if you like, but every now and again you're going to come across certain sub-programs that you're going to need to install, and so what we need to do here, this is step one. If you just come into this cell and you just type in hashtag. Now when you type in hashtag like that, that's basically what's referred to as being commented out. So that tells the program, don't compute this line. It's not a line of code. It's just a heading. It's a note that the program has put in for themselves. So now we're going to do something called pip install, like that. Okay, so if we just now hit enter, that won't run the cell. It just puts more lines into the cell. So pip install. So the first thing we're going to need is a module called Finance for Yahoo Finance. So what we're going to need to type in, you'll need to type this in exactly, is apostrophe mark. You can see it comes up there in purple. Then without doing a space, you need to go pip, then space, then install, then space again, and then you just need to type in Finance as one word, just like that. So once your cell looks exactly like this, okay, and you just come up here and see this button says run, just run the cell. Okay, now you can see I I've already downloaded Y Finance, obviously, but for you, down the bottom here, it'll say, I think it says successfully installed or something like that. But once you just run that cell and it's run and it's happy, and you'll know a cell's been run because up here it puts a number in these square brackets and that sort of tells you that the cell's been run. So once you've done all this, what we can do is I would suggest you just come here and insert a hashtag. Now when you insert the hashtag like that, you can see how the writing's gone green. That means that it's commented out, and it means that the program's not going to read this as code. So if we just now run the cell again, what's happened is the program's just read these lines and gone, oh okay, these are comments, these aren't codes, I can ignore them, I'll skip over them and I'll go to the next cell. So that was an important step that I missed, because if you didn't do that, nothing else will work. So the next thing we're going to do is, once again, we're going to put in a heading. Now I like to put in headings in pretty much every cell that I do, because that way when I come back I know what's happening within the cell. So I'll put in here import the libraries. So we're going to import the libraries that we're going to use in this program. Now in this program we're only going to use one. So once you've typed this in, just hit enter a couple of times to come down here and then just type in import. You can see how that's gone green. I should also mention that once you've pip installed something, it's a one-time process. Once it's installed, it's installed. You don't have to do it every time. That's just what you have to do the first time. So what we need to do here is import, and then we need to type in Y Finance as YF. Now just make sure that import is in green, which means it's like a sort of a keyword, like a function word that the computer understands. Y Finance, that's what we've just installed here, as YF, for a bit of a abbreviation there. Once you've done that, you can just run that cell as well. Okay, so we've got a number there, the cell's run, and we've moved on to the next one. So what we want to do now is we want to download some data. So now we're just going to type in a new heading here. We're going to type in download the data into a data frame. And we'll just hit enter twice there to give ourselves a bit of room. Now a data frame is a vessel for holding information. So for just our purposes at this stage, you can just think of a data frame as like Python's Python's version of an Excel spreadsheet. It's not a spreadsheet, but I'll just show you this because that's probably just the way to think about it initially. So what we need to do is download data into a data frame. So the way we do that is we're going to have to name our data frame. So one of the sort of standard things you'll see across other videos is a lot of people call their data frames DF for data frame, but you could call it whatever you want. You could call it Apple, you could call it Red, as long as it's got an individual name, so that when you call up the data frame again, you know what it's called. So I'm just going to stick with the standard here, which is DF for data frame. So if we just type in DF equals, now we need to type in YF dot download. Okay, so YF, remember here we imported Y Finance as YF. So YF dot download. So we're basically telling the program, go into the Y Finance library that we've created and get out the function download, and then this is what I want you to do next. So we open up some apostrophes, and let's just say we wanted to download Apple. So we put in the stock code for Apple. Now if you wanted the stock code for whatever stock you want to download, you just need to go onto the Yahoo Finance webpage and double check for it. Because we're using the Yahoo Finance library, the code needs to be in the same format as Yahoo Finance presents it. So once we've done that, we just need to do a comma, and then space isn't necessary, but sometimes it's nice to space things out a bit so you can see what's going on. Now we want to give it a date range that we want it to download. So we say start equals, then we open some more apostrophes, and let's just download the data for Apple for this, or for last year I should say, because we're now in 2023. Okay, so once we've done that, df equals yf.download, then you open a bracket, Apple in apostrophes, comma, start equals this. Now, the one thing you need to check when you're putting in brackets in coding, see how these have come up green? That's because they've matched off. If you put another bracket in here, it's red because it's got nothing to match off with. So we just need to make sure that whenever you've got brackets open, that they're green at the end. Okay, now we've done everything we need to do for this cell. All we need to do is come up here and hit run. And now that's done. So we saw a little star in there briefly. That just means that the cell's being computed, being worked, but we've now downloaded the data for Apple for 2022 up until the current day. So now we want to have a look at what we've downloaded. So all we need to do is simply type in df, because now we're going to call up the data frame that we've just made, and that's called df, and we just hit run. And there we go. There's all the data for Apple. That wins the last row, the 30th of December 2022. And we've got the open, the high, the low, the close, the adjusted close, which is basically just the close. If something sort of made the stock move in the aftermarket, you get an adjusted close, and obviously the volume. Now we can just format this a little bit. So one thing we can see here is there's a lot of decimals here. So let's just clean this up. Let's round off the numbers. Let's just do that. That'll just make life a little bit cleaner. So we want to say df for the data frame that we've created equals, and then we're going to say round, and you can see round's gone green. That means that it's like a keyword that the program understands. Now we just open some brackets. Now what do we want to round? We want to round the data frame, and how many decimals? To 2. Okay, and we've got green brackets, so that means that everything is being read correctly, and we just hit run again. Okay, that's been done. So let's call up the data frame again and see what we've got. Now you can see that the decimals have been rounded down, a little bit clearer, a little bit cleaner. Now finally, what I'll show you is, I'll go heads and tails. No, I'm not flipping a coin. But what we can do here is, you can see we've got 252 rows. So we might just want to bring up a small section of the data frame. So what we can do is go df.head. And if we just run that cell, it just brings up the first 5 entries of the data frame. So, you know, if you just wanted to check to make sure everything downloaded properly, but you don't want a big massive data frame, you can do that. Or you can stipulate a number here. So let's say 10, and we'll run this cell. And that will bring up the first 10 lines of the data frame. Now we can do the same thing for the end, but we just call it tail. So if we make this df.tail and run this cell again, now it's brought up the last 10 rows of the data frame. So that's just a few little quick things that we'll just start off with here. Hopefully you've been able to download that data. If there's been a problem, just leave a comment perhaps, or hit me on Twitter, and if I've made a mistake, always possible, I can go back through it. So this was a remake of this original video because I did not do pip install, which was necessary to do. Oversight by me, my apologies. Thanks for watching this video, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.